Zap alert test.
Honestly, for me, it's been community. It's been
something that's giving me many, many friends. It's given me the freedom to kind of travel anywhere and meet people from all over the world and share those experiences with them. Bitcoin is that peer-to-peer electronic cash, that currency, but
history of the American education system. He lays it all out. He was a state school teacher for 30 years. It is done by design to completely stifle that entrepreneurial spirit. It's so dark when you see it.
Yeah, I mean, it happened to me, really. And you know, I've always had like this 11th level, you know, like this extra gear that I can find and I can tap into, and that's like where my passion comes. I mean, we've met at conferences over the last couple of years, you know, a few times, but we have, you know, different skiers that we're doing and things, and you know, when I walk into a conference, I get to meet and talk with the people that I've admired and looked up to for so long, and there's something that happens to me because I'm filled with this passion of what I'm doing, and
You
that's
were on
finally.
fire at Bitcoin Atlantis. On fire. Every time I saw
Thank
you
you.
going, like, you had that briefcase with you, you were just like, bam, bam, bam. And that's where we interacted for like 2 to 5 minutes. And I'm like, you got to get on the pod. We'll sort this out. Because we were, like you said, we were just kind of like revolving around each other. But I could see it. And I saw it in so many people at that conference. And I think I've been trying to figure out what it is. And I think it was natural light, man. 3 days conference in natural light. It's so different.
I was wearing a hoodie in the sunshine, like looking at the most beautiful view you could imagine, and like the people, the atmosphere, the vibe. You know, it's like BTC Prague is still my favorite Bitcoin conference I've ever been to because of the vibe and the content and everything there. But I mean, Bitcoin Atlantis was hard to say it wasn't awesome because the people that I interacted with and the scenery, the food, the island. Like, if you haven't been to Madeira, go. Madeira is a wonderful place. We went hiking. I went canyoning, like jumping off of waterfalls in a wetsuit and stuff like that. That's amazing. I got to stay for a few days after the conference, and I needed the much needed the rest, but I was still just like so filled with, you know, that energy from the whole place. So it was great. I enjoyed it, and yeah, I got to meet a lot of people, and like the lineup and the people who were there was pretty stacked, I would say, and it was very intimate.
Yeah, it was awesome, mate. So history, because you said something at the beginning here, which really kind of got me thinking back in like the beginning of 2020. You said you studied about history and about how people gathered together, in the UK, in the pubs, and Prague, obviously, the pubs. Historically as well, coffee houses used to be, if you went further back in history, that would be in different parts of the world, depending on, the culture of that place. To come together and have these conversations, were there any? Do you want to expand on that a little bit, like what you were learning?
I mean, history is something, from the early days of like explorers getting together and saying, where are we going, and like organizing these kinds of things. But also, I focus mainly the part of history that was the most interesting to me was like Cold War. I found it fascinating. So I read books of Stalin and Khrushchev, and I had this weird kind of attraction to Czech Republic and or Czechoslovakia and what was happening. And there was something unique about Czechs. Is you look at like how revolutions happened, and it did happen with masses gathering in the streets and doing things in a peaceful way. The Velvet Revolution to make these changes happen, but it started with people talking and making these decisions and acting on it. And as we can see, our movement it moved from like little online forums to football stadiums in Madeira. So like you can see this how it's feeling. But what I always found fascinating is people ask me all the time, like, why did you move to Czech Republic? You're an American. Why would you go somewhere like that? And I always joke is there's nothing like a post-communist country that understands what it means to have freedom. And if you look at like what that feels like and that's like here is, the further you get away from gaining your freedom, the more likely you are to start losing it again. And if you look at like the United States as, if I say, what are the countries that surprise you most about financial freedom? The United States should be technically should be the most free place, but it's one of the worst, right? Is you can lump it into crazy categories of other countries that, well, look at China, North Korea, Iran, places where there's not really so much financial freedom and there's a lot of oversight and control. Yeah, it's pretty similar. And so I look at Czech Republic, and here, we have a lot of people who are very concerned about preserving and protecting that freedom. And that's what I always kind of admired about this country. And so I moved here, and I like I said, I studied history with the teaching degree. So I wanted to teach history. I wanted to work with American high school kids and teach. And that was what happened. Like I said, I was an entrepreneur, and all of a sudden I'm like, I'm gonna work as a high school teacher. Yes. And it's like university like kills your dreams. And then so I said, all right, I'll do 1 year. I did study abroad. I actually lived in Canterbury in Kent. I went to Christchurch University there for a semester. And I came to Prague for like a 4-day weekend, and I met some Czech people, and we stayed in touch, and we're still friends. And like, that was Czech. I was like, okay, Czech people are some of the ride or die friends. I've never had friends that are like, I would move back to the States and those guys would call and check on me. As someone I met over 4 days, they kept in touch, and like you ask any Czech person what they're doing this weekend, and they're probably going to say, oh, I have a birthday party to go to. It's like my uncle's friend's birthday party. It's like they have this really, you come here and you see like, oh, they don't look so friendly. They're not really smiley people. Where I go to Spain, everyone's smiling and this, and you come here, but you get to know a Czech person, and after 5 minutes, they have the best sense of humor. Sometimes dark, black humor, but they really are like loyal, good people and good friends, and they're builders. And I started teaching English here as like a sabbatical, a gap year, as they say in the UK. And now I've been here 13, and I work on a project that is dedicated to making Bitcoin what it's supposed to be, which is peer-to-peer without third parties. And that's like, our co-founders of Satoshi Labs, I worked at Trezor for, worked my way up at Trezor. I said, I just want a foot in the door. Let me show you what I can do. And actually, I have a funny story that I tell Knut all the time, because I met Knut in Miami in 2022. And I read his book, and I wanted to get him to sign it. And so this book signing table was right across from the Trezor booth that I had exhausted myself working at that week. And Knut signed my book. He's like, oh, what do you do? And I was like, oh, I work at Trezor. And he's like, oh, Trezor, they're a bunch of shitcoiners. And so he called me a shitcoiner. And that was like the first thing the first interaction I ever had with him. And I was like, well, actually, I don't think you could really call it shitcoiners. Like, if you look at what Trezor and how Trezor really contributed to making Bitcoin accessible and convenient for people is like, BIP39, that exists because of them. The world's first hardware wallet in this path. And then if you look at like our other companies and what Satoshi Labs has done, you have Tropic Square. I don't know if you've heard of Tropic Square, but very cool. World's first open source secure element. Like, it's coming. Then we have Vexel. And Vexel is that app that, is like, it's peer-to-peer, purely peer-to-peer. It's a mobile app. And it's not a wallet. It's not an exchange. It's not some big order book with random people posting offers. It's, it's real. It's something that scales and it works. And I met, like, Leia that same weekend, who is my CEO, the same weekend in Miami. And I was like, so tell me about what this is. And I said, that's what I want to do. That right there is what I want to do. And so every time I think I've met Knut since then, I've given him something. I've given him like whatever I'm holding, whether it be like a t-shirt or something. And I said, Knut, please try to call me a shitcoiner now. Because like, you can't, because that's what, in a way he did motivate me. Because I wanted to show him that, hey, no, that's not what I'm in this for. I'm not in this for anything other than Bitcoin. That's kind of how I found my path to where I am now.
And it's come full circle because he's got his little emblem on like the latest released Trezor hardware wallet, right?
Yeah,
it might be a Bitcoin only one. I can't remember the exact story.
It's the Bitcoin only one, yeah.
Right. Okay. Very. Yeah. I mean,
every Trezor is Bitcoin only, by the way. Yeah. Every Trezor is Bitcoin only because it ships without firmware, so you just choose to install Bitcoin only firmware. And shitcoiners, they exist. They eventually realized that they should just have Bitcoin, so shitcoiners make Bitcoiners. Everyone gets attracted by Lambos and all these talks. Like I said, back in the day, I was a kid. That's what I wanted. But now, we've seen that huge paradigm shift from buy Bitcoin to, hey, don't buy it, study it. You projected on building, study Bitcoin. Because when you start studying it, and when shitcoiners don't study anything, really. They join, they get NFTs and pictures and all this kind of stuff. But then the more they start learning and the more they start dealing with it, they buy a hardware wallet. And if you buy something like Trezor, Trezor, we're Bitcoiners. We're cypherpunks. We're these people. So you have to have these tools to get them and help them understand and educate them. Yes, Bitcoin only companies are awesome. Support your Bitcoin only companies. That's what we're doing. But every Trezor is a Bitcoin only device. You just choose the firmware you want to install. But I think now, we're really, I always joke, I was like, yeah, I think in a few years, maybe Vexel will be bigger than Trezor because, that's what we're trying to make something really convenient is if you look at how people answer that question today, like, okay, I studied Bitcoin, I'm ready to buy it. How do I buy it?
Mm-hmm.
That, depending on who you ask, if someone asks you, you might recommend, 5 different ways.
Mm-hmm.
If you ask, Bob over here, he might say, here's my, centralized exchange referral link. Sign up, man, because I'll get $10 worth of free Bitcoin and you'll get $10 worth of Bitcoin. Win-win, right? But when you do that, you are incentivizing people to give away all of their personal information for convenience. It sounds really familiar. It sounds like the path that we've all been down, whether that be, in a post 9/11 world, it became really, really convenient to share our information with everyone and to give as much information as possible. And they vilified privacy. They vilified the fact that, hey, you have nothing to hide, or do you? Do you have something to hide? You must be up to something. And that's not what privacy is at all. We know that. Privacy is the right to be able to selectively reveal yourself. So when you are kind of, vilified and saying, give all your personal information to exchange, your name, date of birth, shoe size, blood type, all of this, you're not helping anyone because that's not what Bitcoin ever was intended to be. Bitcoin was intended to be peer-to-peer electronic cash without a trusted third party. And that's like, I think I gave you my sticker that I printed up, and it's like, I don't want to do anything. I don't want to change the white paper. I want to highlight what I think is the very first line of the white paper that's important and is often ignored. Is why are we trusting third parties when we have each other? And that's exactly, your daughter asked the question, what is peer-to-peer at the beginning? Is peer-to-peer is easy. We all know somebody. I'm sure you have the guy who orange pilled you, right? We all have those people, and we're constantly doing that. And if anything scales, it's your social circle. Because the more people you talk to, we're all 6 degrees from Satoshi Nakamoto. It used to be Kevin Bacon, but really, we're all Satoshi Nakamoto. Anyone could be, well, except there's one person who's definitely not Satoshi Nakamoto. But we don't need to mention his name. But there's one person who's not, but everyone else potentially is, and we're all connected in that way. So I spent my entire life creating my social circle, the people that I trust, the people that I interact with. If you come to Prague and you need something, you know you can reach out to me because you and I know each other, you know, for a little bit now, and I'm gonna give you good recommendations. I'm not gonna give you some bad recommendation. But a lot of people, if you're a tourist and you're traveling around and you want to visit a new city, where do you look for information? Google, right? Google Maps, or worst, TripAdvisor. And I make this joke because it's like, you know, if you come to Prague and you want to eat good food, let's go to TripAdvisor. All right, what do we look at? Number one restaurant in Prague, it's an Indian restaurant. I love Indian food, but if you come to Prague, don't eat Indian food. Go get a pork knuckle or a svíčková or even a smajak. You know, don't go get these Indian restaurants. You know, so Vietnamese food is very good in Prague, by the way. I will say I recommend some Vietnamese food, but that's
an
world
interesting.
that we live in.
That's an interesting historical tie-in, right? Why are there so many Vietnamese people in Prague?
Yeah. Well, during communism in Czech Republic, you know, Vietnam was also a communist country, and there was some like exchange between the countries, and you know there still is very much a very close bond. If you go to Vietnam, you can actually find a lot of people speaking Czech,
That's
and
nice.
I mean it's really like they're countries that they really like. We like each other. We like Vietnamese people here. You know, they're great. A lot of my colleagues are as well. They're Czech people. You know, that's what they are. They grew up here. They spent their whole life here, and you know, it's part of it. So, but there was a special relationship during communism between those countries. That there was some exchanges. But the Vietnamese food is very good. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. All right, so the thing I wanted to talk about with the history stuff, and you've really done a nice lead up to it here, is when lockdowns happened. And the alarm bell that went off in my mind was, oh shit, they don't want us in the pubs or the cafes or the bars discussing what is actually going on here. They truly want, I mean, it was like, all right, they just decentralized the gulags. We are prisoners in our own homes. And when it's just funny that when you said, you know, you'd studied that and how these, because there would have been, like, it would have taken 3 or 4 days of people discussing like this, like, nah, this can't be right. This can't be true. This can't be real. But no, of course we couldn't, because we couldn't be face to face with each other. We were masked. We were locked away. It was such a freaking state psyop globally. Well, a web psyop, whatever you want to call it. But what was going through your mind? Was it the same in Prague, or was it less? Or...
Man, it feels like so long ago now. But like, yes. I mean, at first, you know, you had the initial. I remember hearing about it and being at work and being like, I should wash my hands. You know, like feeling that there was something coming. And then when, you know, Czech Republic was, I think, one of the first countries in Europe to kind of shut down, to have this sort of lockdown, which is surprising. But there's also some funny things that happened in Czech Republic as a result of it. But yeah, we did mask up. You know, we had some crazy thoughts about needing to wear a mask all the time outside. You know, people wearing masks in their own homes. You know, this was a time where they did use a level of fear. And then, you know, hey, again, they're willing to do things out of convenience. And so it's like, oh, you can go to the pub. You can travel. You can do these things, but you gotta first go get these weird tests that shove up your nose that, you know, put samples, and we collect some data. And then also, now you gotta get vaccinated. And it was like, well, I want to travel. I want to go to the pub. I want to eat. You know, I want to see my friends. So maybe I should get vaccinated. And it became, you know, easier to do what they said to do than to question. Because, you know, hey, here's that lockdown, stay home, but now you can go out, but only if you have this. I went to France during the whole lockdown in 2021, and it was crazy. Like every time you go in and out of anywhere, you have to scan, you know, this QR code that it says you're allowed, you're allowed. So then we started living in a world that required permission to live in. You know, if you didn't have permission, you were not allowed to participate in society. And that's terrifying. And I think a lot of people, I hate to use the expression woke up during that, but I think a lot of people started to realize, and they, that even found their path into this, But I also do think that people were very productive during this time. People realized that they have to start doing something, that they have to start making changes in their life. I mean, honestly, I did feel like I used the time wisely. I have a dog I was talking about. I started sewing. Like, I never sewed anything in my life. I bought a sewing machine and started a dog collar business, and then I was like, holy shit, I'm an entrepreneur again. What's going on?
Right.
Like I started a business during COVID because I was bored. And when you take people, I think that a lot of the world underestimated what people do when they're bored.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're bored, your mind starts running, it starts getting turned on, and you start making, you have to do something. And so I started a dog collar business, and sold quite a lot, I would say. I sewed dog collars and leashes, started this Instagram store, and then next thing I know, I'm moving to Shopify, and I'm shipping, every month. Like, I was sewing, and yeah, that's what got me into the door at Satoshi Labs, is because I was bored, and I said, okay, I don't know. There's no way. I have no experience in that area other than the knowledge that I've gained of the years of being interested in Bitcoin. There's no way. I had one interview with them, and they were like, "Dude, you're hired." That's what I told them. I was like, "Just give me a foot in the door. I know I'm good at stuff, But if I have the people, and if I have those kind of that push and that encouragement, it's like, yeah, I can really do something." And I've been in this, in Satoshi Labs for 2.5 years, and it feels like I've been here 10. Like I can't imagine the stuff and the where my life is now is like I'm actually doing more than I've done in the last 2.5 years than I have in the last 10. I'm building stuff. I really feel that we're making a difference, and yeah. But that kind of COVID and that is like we are all afraid. We all had that fear that's leading you, and that's what they've used every single time, and there's a reason why it works, because it works. People give up the convenience out of fear, whether that fear be fear of terrorism or fear of a virus that you can't see. Yeah.
Yeah, man. All right, I got a book for you. Maybe you've heard of it. It's called Red Symphony, and it's written by a guy called Landowski, who was you'll love it. If you like Russian kind of history and how it all tied in with the Second World War and everything, it just blows the doors off. It's not a book, it's a transcript of a conversation that took place between a guy called Rakovsky, who was the Russian ambassador to France, and one of Stalin's top NKVD agents. And there was a doctor in the room called Landowski, who it was his job just to keep enough red wine on the guy's table to keep him talking, And this actual book is just a chapter from a huge book. But this one is really, really important because they go into the capturing of the fiat monetary system, and who and they and everything, man. It's going to light you on fire. So I'll send you the link after this. It's called Red Symphony.
Yeah.
I'll send you the link. All right.
I got one. I mean, I got one I can recommend to you too.
Go on then.
We'll get into it. But have you ever read A Lodging of Wayfaring Men?
No.
By Paul Rosenberg.
No. All right, I'm writing that down. A larger thing, did you say?
A lodging, like a lodge. A Lodging of Wayfaring Men by Paul Rosenberg. Written before Bitcoin. But it's very interesting because it basically describes how this cypherpunk movement kind of starts to come about. But you have these people who are participating in a peer-to-peer society that are being charged with treason by the United States government. And yeah, it's remarkable. And there's so much in that book that has also been inspirational for Bexel, what we're doing. And so yeah, I highly recommend it. I just reread it while we were in Madeira, and it's fantastic. Yeah, check it out.
actually looking it up right now on Audible, see if I can get it and start listening to it this afternoon. But yeah, so Vexel, what is it? Let's give the shill. We don't need an elevator pitch. We can get into it. You know, what is it and how's it work?
So Vexel is a mobile app that allows you to peer-to-peer Bitcoin. April to this year, I have like 3,000, and everywhere I go, there's offers. You know, I was in Madeira, there were people selling Bitcoin in Madeira. Everywhere you can find it. But what you've also found is that people meet and they didn't know that they share a mutual friend, and they meet and they go, hey, by the way, Wednesday we have a community meetup. You should come along. Mm-hmm. So when you answer that question, it's going back to like, how do I buy Bitcoin? If you want to educate someone, you want to give them a tool, don't give them some app that connects to a centralized exchange that they give all their information to. Vexel is the first step, because not only can you buy Bitcoin there without KYC, peer-to-peer, the way it was intended, but you can also potentially say, I might need some help, right? I want to learn more about Bitcoin. I want to learn more about self-custody. And, you know, because the way Vexel works is that it's done in a private way. And my friend, I told this story before, and I actually wrote an article about it, but my friend, Gary, and we've known each other for a decade, longer than a decade now. And we play video games together. He's a father, you know, he's busy. I come home from work and I have my dog, I just want to chill and play some video games. So we've talked a lot over the years. And he knows I work in Bitcoin now. He knows I've been a Bitcoiner for a long time. And every time I've told my friend, who is an American, who lives in Czech Republic, to buy Bitcoin, he says, dude, I can't. Why? Because I'm an American, I don't have a permanent address in America, and no centralized exchange will take my information. I don't have permission to use the centralized exchange. Okay, so go to an ATM. Yeah, and pay 12% fee on top of it just to be able to buy a little Bitcoin. I'm losing. You know, ultimately you're not losing, but at that moment it still feels like a loss in your head, and it still feels unfair for you to have to pay 12% on something. So he says, you know, like, I can't do it. So one day we were playing. I used to work at this company in Czech Republic where they accept Bitcoin. So in 2017, when Bitcoin hit, you know, like 20K, I was like, dude, I'm buying something with Bitcoin. And I bought a Nintendo Switch that I played for like 3 weeks and then never touched again. And so my friend asked me, hey man, can I buy that Nintendo Switch? And I said, sure, but I'll only sell it for Bitcoin. He goes, dude, I told you I can't. I don't know how. I said, try this, man. Download Vexel and put in your offer. I want to buy my friend's Nintendo Switch, but he only takes Bitcoin. Hell. 2 hours later, he sent me Bitcoin via Lightning, and I gave him the Switch. The guy that he met is now his Bitcoin dealer, we might say. He DCAs into Bitcoin with the same guy now for well over a year. He's DCAing like every month with the same guy that he met from one Vexel interaction, right? So Vexel doesn't have to be every time you want to buy Bitcoin you open Vexel. Vexel's about helping you find the guy that is your Bitcoin dealer. But if your Bitcoin dealer can't help you DCA this week, well, don't worry, because there's a lot of other people in your social circle that will also be willing to buy or sell Bitcoin to you. And so we think about scalability is that absolutely scales, because you're basically over time going to build a social web of trust that you know that you can buy Bitcoin from every single time. No matter where I go in the world, we're all connected, and you do not have to be on Vexel to be included in that. Because if you know my mom, and she's my mom, and she knows you. Kind of opinion. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask him to send you a message in just a few moments. He's going to send you a message. He doesn't have to tell me you don't have to tell me you're Daniel, but you can tell my mom, hey, I want to trade with this guy. Can you tell him I'm cool? My mom vouches for you. I meet you. I give you cash. You give me Bitcoin. And I go, you're cool, man. Let's hang out, or let's grab a beer, or we're here. I didn't know you have a podcast. Tell me more about it. yes, we go and you're able to kind of grow that community, and that's everything. Not your grandmother's ETF and investing blindly and centralized exchanges and doing all this. It's community is everything. Get together and answer that question, how do I buy Bitcoin? You vexel it. And what does that mean? It means peer-to-peer without KYC. Don't buy Bitcoin, vexel Bitcoin. And that's what we, I think you said you talked to Martin yesterday about that history.
Yeah.
And why we call it vexel is, that's why. Because you needed permission to participate in society. Vexlocks under communism were able to give everyone a sense of freedom. And we are in danger of losing if we still allow third financial institutions to gobble up everything and then say, okay, you want to use it? Well, you need to participate. We'll grant you permission to participate in that system. No KYC, peer-to-peer, that is the way. And I think that Joe Hall made a really good joke in the panel with Saylor. It's like, well, what if, you're not going to see Saylor in a parking lot going like, can I get 10,000 Bitcoin?
Yeah. 10,000 Bitcoin, exactly. Not $10,000,
yeah.
10,000 Bitcoin.
Yeah, can I get 10,000 Bitcoin? And it's like, well, yeah, but maybe Saylor has a pretty strong web of trust. He has a pretty strong circle. So even for someone like him, it might be possible, right? And as we go, and no KYC doesn't mean, and that's why I told you about the logic of wayfaring men, is it's not my responsibility to force you to participate in someone else's system, right? Is you're a person and you live in society, so it's up to you. You have your own beliefs in your own way. So I'm not telling anyone to don't report your income, don't do that, but it's your right to be able to do whatever you want to do. It's not my job to police you. And that's why we want as little information about anyone. We don't have any information. We don't know anything about anyone. We know what country the phone numbers are in, and that's the only thing we know, is where our networks are kind of growing.
All right, so
but that's what
I want to come back to the Vexlocks and we'll do like exactly who they are and how they come to be and whatever else, because the plebs love history, love it. There's got to be a business model here somewhere. So how do Vexel survive and make money? What's the solution?
Yep. Well, Vexel is nonprofit, as I said. We have zero plans to monetize. That is because we really believe that it's value for value. That there are ways you can participate in this system, and if someone is selling Bitcoin on the app and they want to say thank you and they want to kick back to us, after they sold so much money, thank you very much. It helps to keep our lights on and food in my dog's belly. We are 5 people and a dog, and the way that we look at it is that we don't want to monetize it because we want to create something that gives people freedom, that allows and gives everyone the freedom to transact. I don't want you to have to pay to use this app, right? I don't want to know anything about you or your trades or who you're trading with. And if we start to figure out some sort of monetization path, it just doesn't work, right? And that's why there's no one else doing what we're doing. Is Bitcoin is for everyone. This is for everyone, and that's why I told you in the beginning is like, I'm passionate about this because it's like, I don't need yachts. I don't need private jets. I don't need to take my yacht to Madeira. I am fine. I'm happy. I love my life. I love my dog, but more importantly, I love what I'm doing. Because, as I said, I studied history, and those people, and I had a really interesting conversation in Madeira one night after, at some restaurant with a guy, and he says, the best thing about Satoshi Nakamoto is that if he is still alive, he gets to sit back and look and go, feels good, man. Like, that, it has to feel good. And, that's I was a teacher. Yes, I was an entrepreneur, back in the day. I did these things, and I will always find ways to make money in other things. But the one thing that motivates me or anything is that passion, is finding something that you truly believe in and working on it and pushing for it and trying to make it work and improve people's lives. And that's why I think, is looking at our business model or anything like that, we don't have one. If you like Vexel and you want to contribute and you want to help us and you want to help this thing grow, and I had a guy from Australia, and he's like, no, I want this. I'm greedy. I want Vexel for me because I want to be able to buy and sell Bitcoin this way. Yeah, that's why Vexel exists, because we wanted it. We wanted a way to be able to buy Bitcoin without KYC, peer-to-peer, the way it was intended, right? So, it's like asking the same question: if Satoshi is alive, well, why are his coins never moved? Why are these things? And it's like, well, the same with Vexel is that we don't want to monetize it because, number one, that ruins something that's pure. Pure peer-to-peer means pure peer-to-peer. You trade with your peer without us being involved, without collecting any sort of fee. There is no escrow. There is no trust in any sort of third party. We do not facilitate anyone's trades. We are essentially tender for peer-to-peer. We want you to have good connections. We want you to meet people, and we want you to trade on your own terms, right? And that's where you look at the app and the features that we've added, is to make that even a better experience for people. Is like there's a trade checklist. So before you meet someone, you can agree to the terms so that you have a little idea there, and you can say, nope, this is what we agreed on, we changed. But you will find that most people don't disagree because of the connections that you have. It's a completely different reputation model than any other peer-to-peer service. If you look at any other peer-to-peer exchange, it's a risk. There's risk involved because even though it's no KYC, it's still KYC light because you're trusting a third party, and then you're sending bank transfers. Okay, what does that mean? That means my name appears in a random person's bank account. That random person could be absolutely wanted for a crime in Singapore and be under investigation. So then the bank calls and say, hey, why are you doing business with this known criminal? How do you explain that? Or if you're selling or selling Bitcoin frequently to pay rent or to pay everything else, your bank starts saying, hey, why do you have all of these incoming transactions, these things? We're going to freeze your bank account until we understand what's going on. Freezing people's bank accounts is a reality. It happens, right? So that's why I say, hey, face-to-face, cash, still the best way. They vilify cash. You look at some countries like Denmark where, ooh, cash is gross, right? But that's not, cash is still king because it still provides the level of privacy. And that's what's the most important aspect of it. And that's why we say it's like, I want you to be able to peer-to-peer Bitcoin as easy as you can go buy a carton of milk, right? If you need milk for your breakfast or cereal or whatever, you walk over there, usually right around the corner from where you are, and you come right back, right? That's how easy it has become to buy Bitcoin peer-to-peer in Czech Republic right now. Because you have people who are using it. Because historically, they understand the need for something like this. And, it's that circular economy aspect of it as well, is if we want to live in a society where we do become on the Bitcoin standard, there are people living on it. Probably better than anyone, there are people living on the Bitcoin standard, and it's getting a lot easier. And that's what we're trying to do. And so monetization is, how do you monetize that? How do you monetize people participating in a true, purely peer-to-peer circular economy? You don't. You create it, you give it, it's a gift to the world. So if you like what we're doing and you want to help us expand and you want to help us grow it and you want to help us share it with the world, then yes, you can say thank you. We appreciate every single donation. It goes directly into future development and further development of the app and to expand. I wouldn't be able to come to Madeira to speak and to meet you and to do these things if it wasn't for donations from people. That's just the simple truth. But no, there's zero monetization.
Have you spun up a merch store? Can people buy hats and hoodies and t-shirts, like Vexel branded stuff?
We don't have a merch store, but I have one over here. I have t-shirts. We have really cool brand, like really cool stuff. I know you've probably seen it. I do have hats and things, but usually we give these to the community. So, when we go to meetups, when I go to places, I usually bring a few with me because, it costs money to spin up an app, spin up a merch store, and then it costs time to deal with the logistics of things. Also, I don't want to create throwaway merch. I don't want to create something that you might wear 2 or 3 times and then toss. So our merch is like, I wear it. I wear it constantly. I have a cool hat maybe back here, but I want to create something that's truly valuable and something that people want that value. And I know that you've been around, when you see good merch and you go, damn, this is nice and quality. And you'll even pay for that because you understand the value there. I remember being in Miami in 2022 at the Bitcoin conference and the massive amount of garbage that I accumulated on a daily basis that I would get back to my hotel and I'm like, dude, I flew here on an airplane. There's no way I'm taking all this junk back. You talked about the water bottle from Satoshi Labs. It's like, no, create something that people do want and that's valuable and that they hold on to because everything else is junk. And I don't want it.
100%. Well, there's an opportunity there for an entrepreneur listening to this to do some kind of Vexel, high-end Vexel merch and give you guys a cut. People have the time. And that people are looking to contribute in the space some way, for sure.
Yeah, and that's like the thing as well is if you're listening to this and you have a community, if you are a meetup organizer, it's like, what is happening at your meetups, right? Is people are coming there with the hope to peer-to-peer. They're learning more about Bitcoin. They're learning about what the important things about Bitcoin are, and that is, peer-to-peer, you don't need to trust anyone else, right? So you come to these meetups, and if you're a meetup organizer, it's like, I want to talk to you. I want to hear how what aspect of your community, what could be cool about Vexel for them. How can we help? How can we, and that's what we do is like, I was in Barcelona last week. I went to the Barcelona Bitcoin Only. Kenobi invited me, and it was amazing. There was like 55 people there. And everyone, they participate and they're asking questions and they all, they say, yeah, we need this. And I always tell people, it's like, we're fully open source. Be skeptical. I don't want you to trust anyone who says anything. Don't trust, verify. You hear those words over and over. Our code is on GitHub. We're fully open source. You can find it. Be skeptical. Ask questions. Want to really understand how it works, and the more you start looking into Vexel, the more you go, oh yeah, this scales, this works, because let's get over that objection, because most people, like your dude in Australia, right? He's going to be like, yeah, I want this, but no one around me has it. Here I am in rural France. I have the app. I've posted an offer. So I am participating, and I've checked the other offers that are available. In Prague, it's showing me. And yes, you probably
my two common contacts are Matches and yourself. So
yeah. And that's the thing, right? Is, as I said before, every marketplace is empty when it starts.
Right.
Vexel is grassroots. Communities are grassroots. Or imagine the first Bitcoin meetup you hosted. How many people were there, right? 3, 4, 5. Then the more, you have 50. Barcelona Bitcoin, huge community, amazing community, but it had to start somewhere. And Vexel works the same way. Is if you want Vexel, tell people about it. But the best thing, as you just said, the best thing you can do is create an offer. Because the next person who joins, there's not an empty marketplace. So if you have Vexel and you want to buy Bitcoin without KYC, without anything,
get a Vexel, get Vexel, create an offer, say, I want to buy, I want to sell. And even if it takes a few weeks, somebody's gonna jump on there and be like, oh, there's someone here. I'm looking to buy, and that's the way, it's because it starts to scale out. And I mean, in Czech Republic, we launched Chain Camp, which is from the brothers Martin and Matthias. I want to say it's the largest non-English speaking Bitcoin only conference in the world.
It is. That's what they said.
You came to Prague. Yeah, you came to Prague. You know those guys. You know the vibe, right? No one else is doing it like they're doing. BTC Prague is an event. It's not to be missed. But Chain Camp was my real first experience with the Hukash brothers and what they were doing, and I'm not a native Czech speaker. I had so much fun. But we launched Vexel, and going back to history, is Vexlocks had a style. They were easily recognizable. They wore a lot of denim. It was the 80s.
This was back in the dark kind of communist days, right? Why?
80s.
It was the need because there were
80s.
two different currencies, right? Is that the whole?
Yeah, as I said, I'm American, so I never experienced them myself. But there were these vouchers, and these vouchers they called them boni. And these vouchers were necessary to be able to go into these stores that were sponsored by governments, and the store was called Tuzex. And Tuzex would allow you to buy a pair of blue jeans or a JVC stereo, stuff that other people couldn't buy. So if you weren't allowed to go in that store, but you had cash, the Vexlocks would meet you on the street, and you would give them cash, they would give you boni. You would take the boni in, and then you had permission to participate in that society. So it was a really gray area. It was a gray market because they were genuinely tolerated, but it was certainly illegal. But they were tolerated because they did provide that freedom. And as I said, look at why Czech language, and look at how powerful that has been for Czech Republic over the years. Is Czech Republic has been occupied but never conquered, right? Is because the Czechs are gathering. The Czechs assassinated Hitler's butcher of Prague. If you've ever heard about that, is they got together in pub and they said, we're going to assassinate Heinrich, and they did it really close to here. The guy who was responsible for tons and tons of murder, he was murdered in Prague by Czech people, assassinated because he was limiting them. And so Czechs have always had this kind of ability to stay together and to create things, but never lose what it means to have that sort of Czech freedom. And it's inside of them. Even though, the Nazis came here and the Russians came here and you've had occupiers, but you've never been truly conquered, because Czech culture is very strong. And I think that those people and the way that they participated in that society back then, that's where it comes today, is Vexlocks, right? And they had this style. They were easily recognizable. They had mullets, right? They looked really, you would look at them and go, it's pretty cool now, right? But back then, it was very cool. But I grew up with the achy breaky Billy Ray Cyrus Hart mullet, the country music mullet, not the 80s Vexlock mullet. But at Chain Camp, we decided when we launched Vexel, it was like, we're gonna dress up, we're gonna wear. So I was wearing a mullet, giant glasses, and an Adidas tracksuit, but I'm an American, right? So every person that I'm encountering, I'm speaking, my Czech, but the second that I open my mouth and speak Czech, I'm identified as not being Czech. So they're like, what the hell is this dude dressed up as a Vexlock? What is going on? This is so bizarre. But people loved it, and immediately it connected with the Czech audience because they went, aha, peer-to-peer, no KYC, because it got it. But outside of Czech Republic, you don't really have that same knowledge of it. I know you know Chris from Cedar.
Yeah.
And I've gotten to know Chris, the tallest man in Bitcoin, but I've gotten to know him a little bit over the last couple of years, and he had the first time he heard Vexel, he was like, "Is that from like the German word?" And my German is as bad as everyone else's who's a native English speaker. And he was like, "Is it from like the Vexel, like a Vexel?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's exactly what it's from." So it actually comes from the German word to Vexel, which is to change money. And if you go to Germany today, you will still see the word like Vexel is the currency exchange. They had a question about it. I think at the pub quiz in Madeira. I was like, what app is using the Vexel, like the German word? But this word is German. It means the same. But in Czech Republic, it took on a different kind of feeling because Vexlaks were also the people who would trade and allow tourists who were coming in. They would trade money. They would exchange money with the tourists to allow tourists to participate in this communist society. So there is a lot of rich history there, and I recommend looking it up. There's a really interesting movie that I watched last year called Boni a Klid, which is a Czech film about Vexlaks. That's very interesting. But they use the same song over and over. Frankie Goes to Hollywood, Relax, Don't Do It. So if that song triggers you, I wouldn't recommend it. But there certainly is that history that comes, and that's why we were so successful in Czech Republic. But that's why you said, if you have a meetup, if you have something, learn that history, learn what it means and why it's important, and talk about it. Because Vexel does work, it does scale, it does grow, and there's no simpler, better way to buy it. And now, I think if you look at how difficult it is to use a centralized exchange for a first timer, right? Now it's becoming easier to peer-to-peer than it ever has been. Because how many hurdles and how many things do they put in front of you that stand between you buying Bitcoin and actually getting Bitcoin into your wallet? Mm-hmm. A lot. And every single one of those,
Yeah, we're at a point now as well that you were talking about earlier, like there are so many people living or trying to live on a Bitcoin standard, and circling out of the Bitcoin that you've hodled for so long is a painful experience because you want to keep hodling, but you've moved away from the fiat rat trap. So you are forced to still, for us to participate in this society, I need fiat currency. So therefore, I need a way to exchange the Bitcoin. And going back to the centralized exchanges is far worse than it's far worse selling back to the centralized exchanges than it was buying in the first place. Because then you're really gonna start raising red flags. So, okay, sure. So where's all that money going to now? What bank account do you want that to go to? So I see this as a natural progression, and I think this is why P2P is just going to start exploding, because so many people around the world are forced into finding fiat, but they do not 100% do not want to go back through the same route that they might have come in, through the centralized exchanges.
No, and I think also people are starting to understand the importance of privacy and what it means to have some sort of degree of privacy. But the convenience side of it is exactly what you just touched on. Is now it's like, man, I have to pay for something in a fiat world. Do I really want to wait to send my money to an exchange and then send that money into my bank account, which sometimes takes 5 days, whatever, it's like you're still living in dinosaur world. This is crazy to me. If I want to get cash because I have to pay rent because my landlord is a former, is a Bosnian immigrant who understands, hey, I don't want a bank account, I want cash. And I want to put that cash under my mattress, There are still people who live through wars who are understanding that banks are not your friend, that banks freeze your accounts, banks take your money, and they don't have to give it back to you because, there was a disaster, there was a war, there was something. You look at FDIC insurance, on mounting deposited in the bank account. It's like, what does that even mean? Is it, it's because they could print more, but I look at what it is, and it's way more convenient for me, someone who does earn some Bitcoin. that if I need to pay rent, I'm gonna vexel it. I'm gonna get cash, and I'm gonna give that cash to the landlord. I'm not gonna, why does it ever need to touch my bank account? And I think that, as you said, is no one wants to go through that hurdle and those hoops of dealing with that, selling the Bitcoin on an exchange. Selling your Bitcoin on an exchange feels dirty. It feels worse because you're going, you're looking at it and it looks like Wall Street,
Yeah, well, who's going to hoover that up, right? The ETFs are going to hoover that up. I want to stand face to face with a dude and, okay, yeah, here's a couple €100 worth of Bitcoin to your Lightning wallet or on chain. What do you, okay, here's the difference. Yeah. And then you have that conversation and then you're educating the next wave of Bitcoin.
Educating the next person. And that's, that's why I talk about like the orange pilling, and what that is like in Madeira, it's like every taxi that I would get in Madeira, the guy would be like, oh, you guys here for the Bitcoin conference? Yeah. The people who were in here before me, they told me about Bitcoin, and I have wallet of Satoshi, and then you have like 3 people in the car who are like, and no one can agree on what is the best way, right? Is if some people use these wallet of Satoshi, if someone uses Blink, or if someone uses Phoenix, they all have people who are fighting against them, who are saying, oh, you shouldn't use that, or you shouldn't do that. And it's like, hey, guys, one thing we should all agree on is that you should be peer-to-peering your Bitcoin. Like, peer-to-peer, and no KYC your Bitcoin, and self-custody, right? So what's wrong with these white laws? People go, oh, it's not self-custody, right? And so we encourage everyone to get in self-custody, but we also understand that if you have 10 minutes to get to your destination in the back of the taxi, and you want to get out of that taxi, and you want to give someone Bitcoin when you get out of it, their first Bitcoin ever, that, you only got so much time. You've got a 10-minute or even shorter elevator pitch to give something to someone that could potentially make an impact on their life for the rest of it, value for value. And, if you have some taxi drivers, you don't say a word. You get in and you drive nothing, right? But I've been in many a taxi with random Bitcoiners and Bitcoin friends, and that conversation comes up more than you sometimes want it to. Is, hey, do you know about Bitcoin? Can I pay you in Bitcoin? And we have to figure out a way to educate people quickly, to educate people the right way. And this is one of the reasons why I like Nostr. I mean, I got really purple Nostr pilled hard in Madeira because most of the people that I were communicating with, we were exchanging, Nostr contacts. And, Nostr, some of these applications, they do come with wallets, and you can Lightning someone, like these Primal wallets. There is some KYC involved in that, and that's the thing. But there's like, to be able to orange pill someone and Nostr pill them at the same time, and send them their first sats and say, hey, follow these people and ask questions, right? Learn about Bitcoin, keep studying it, go down this rabbit hole. That's something that we have to do, because if your taxi driver, if he hears about Bitcoin in the back of the taxi and then he goes home and he starts Googling it, well, he's going to wind up on sponsored ads that are going to lead him down the path and going, click here to you get your free first Bitcoin free, in exchange for what? Like, that's the problem that I see, and that's the problem that I think, Vexel does fix, is that you can tell the guy in the taxi that, you need a Lightning wallet, and if you want to buy, or if you want to sell the Bitcoin that I just gave you, right? Peer-to-peer it. Who has a, taxi drivers have a pretty damn good social graph and a pretty good web of trust, because I remember when I lived in Austin, Texas, I used the same taxi driver every single time because I trusted that guy. I could leave stuff in that taxi and he'd pick me up after the night out and he'd give me my stuff back. He would keep it safe for me. If I went to a concert, he was my coat check. So that's the kind of things, and that's the kind of people, is if you're participating in that society and that living on that standard, and you want to share with people, don't incentivize them to give away their personal information. How do you buy Bitcoin? Vexel it. That's why our website is, people ask me all the time, are you Italian? Are you guys related to Italy? And I'm like, no. I have to explain that, but it's like vexel.it, because it's how do you get it, you vexel it.
Vexel it. Right. Okay.
Yeah. So, and as I say, it's like, you know, check it out. We also have the Foundation, which is our nonprofit that supports the funding of the Vexel app. You know, as we build Vexel and as, you know, value for value starts coming in, we really are looking forward to being able to fund other privacy preserving projects, bringing in ways. You know, we're looking at the future and how, you know, we can look at things like Nostr, and you know, there's some potential on Nostr. Does it have a good, trusted social graph currently? No, because you've spent your whole life building the one that you already have. It's impossible to reinvent a social network just for us, but Nostr is doing something. And you can feel that, you can feel the growth, and you can feel how something is definitely, there is something to be said about it. But it doesn't provide what you have right now, and that's your real world reputation. My online reputation it's possible to reinvent tomorrow, right? New profile picture, who dis, right? You see this all the time, but my real world reputation, I'm not gonna screw you over. If I meet you on a Vexel trade, I want my trade to go well because you know a lot of the same people I do, and the last thing that anyone wants to hear is that Grafton scammed Daniel. No one wants to hear that. You protect your real world reputation. Your online one you don't care about. And that's why looking at what Vexel is and how it's changing that reputation model and what it's bringing to the table is it brings something completely different. We don't have a 5-star rating system because it's not necessary. Why is it necessary do you give your friends 5-star ratings? No. You call your friend a dick if he's a dick. You call him, you know, you give recommendations to people that you trust. And you can do that in a way that's extremely privacy preserving. And that's what Vexel is privacy preserving, trust-based network that allows you to connect with people the way it was intended. And, you know, I can talk all day about that, but the best thing that you could possibly do is to, like, try it. Grow your community.
My takeaway from this is, whoever's listening, just download the app, create an offer. There's absolutely no downside, and you're just going to help create like a bigger sphere. And for those that, I'll connect you with a couple of people I know in the UK that run UK events.
Great.
And in Andorra as well. Make sure Tib is up to speed. And it'd be, yeah, you do? All right. Cool.
Yeah. We've talked several times.
Excellent. And it'd be great for people just to give a little slideshow intro, you know. I love the event. It's great. It's great just to go and meet and have a few beers, but I think they've got to evolve into something more where there is some kind of structure to it. You know, I've been to a bunch of them, and the best ones are, right, guys, just 20 minutes. Just, you know, I'm going to talk you through this new service and what it means. Bam, open up a conversation again. Because you are in a bar, after all, and you want to go and have fun and have conversation.
Well, that's why I said every meetup starts to scale. It's at first, it's a couple friends getting together talking about Bitcoin, and then the next thing you know, they're like, I brought some other people, and these people want to learn stuff. And so it's like you can do it, but then as your meetup and your community starts to grow, it starts to really become something, and then you do become the guys in the pub talking about changing the world.
Yep.
And that impact is great. You know, I talked to Max Hildebrand about that all the time. Me and Max, you know, sometimes in Prague, and Max is a very good friend with my dog. So we go hiking all the time, and I had that conversation with him. I was like, dude, it's so crazy. Back when we were talking about CoinJoin and all that stuff, I was like, it's crazy. I never imagined myself talking to someone like you, figuring out how we can educate people and help them learn and take back their privacy, reclaim it, as your shirt says. And that's something that we, as Bitcoiners, as something that we have to do. We have to reclaim our privacy, and then we have to be very selective about what we reveal about ourselves. So if you're a meetup organizer, I am very easy to get in touch with. Like, I am a private person, but I'm also a public face. You know, I have not many people named Grafton in the world. that I've known. But I'm on Twitter. I'm Sats Disco pretty much everywhere. Like Sats Disco. Disco's my old gamer tag from back in the day, so it's kind of stuck with me. But ask me questions. You know, send me your thoughts, send me your critiques, your criticisms. I just want to talk to you. I don't want to argue. I want to listen, and I want to understand what your approach is and how Vexel. Because as I said, we're wanting to create a tool for everyone that gives everyone the ability to participate in Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is for everyone. And so if you have an idea, if you have a thought, if you have a question, reach out to me, and let's talk. If you have a meetup and you want some support, if you want us to come and show Vexel and share it with your community and give you guys some tips on how to really jumpstart it, get in touch. I'll be happy to. If you want, if you want some merch, if you want to get, something, if you want to support our app, if you want to help with that development, like check out Vexel.foundation. It's our foundation's website. Check out Vexel.it. Get in touch. And tell your friends more than anything, but create offers. Really get it on there, create offers, and start telling people. Answer the question, how do I buy Bitcoin? Vexel it, right? That's what we want, and it's gradually and then suddenly. And that is what we all know to be true.
Yes, we do.
Is how many people ask you about Bitcoin now versus a year ago, or whatever. So, yeah, but it's really been a pleasure to talk to you. Finally, we got to kind of sit down and have like some long-form conversation.
I was wondering, are you going to be in Warsaw for the European Halving Party? Are you making that trip?
I will be there.
You will be there? Okay, excellent. We will see you there, and I want to do a Vexel trade with you in person, face to face. Somehow, we'll figure something out. Yeah. What is it? Actually, they have the zloty, right? We're gonna need some zloty. Any Polish Bitcoiners listening, please get some offers into your Vexel, because Grafton and I are coming. We need some local shitcoins.
I will definitely need local shitcoin. I'm looking forward to the films and to the conference and to meeting everyone. And the place where it is, I talked to Tomek the day before yesterday, and it's at the Palace.
Yeah.
Like, it's in the center
amazing.
of Warsaw. Yeah. I was like, I've seen that building my whole life in pictures, and now I get to like set up a peer-to-peer spot to sell Bitcoin there. I was like, it's the coolest thing ever. So I'm really looking forward.
And the fact your Twitter handle is Sats Disco, they're going to have a silent disco, which is going to be so much fun. Have you ever been to one of those things?
Of course, man. Of course. I've been to silent discos. I went to the one of the biggest music festivals in America, which was Bonnaroo back in the day. I grew up listening to jam band music, so I traveled around America from a very early age to go chase my favorite bands in concert. Awesome. It helped that I made that money on the internet.
Yeah, for sure.
But my dog has woken up here. Yeah. But I definitely have been to some silent discos. My favorite band is still disco.
It's the perfect event for a Bitcoin, because everyone's just gonna have the earphones off talking probably. That's what happens when Bitcoiners get together, as you well know. Okay. Final question for you: if you had one last orange pill left to give to somebody, who would you give it to and why?
Oh God. Ooh, it's a tough one. I could think about that one for a long time. But if I wanted to truly orange pill someone, man, I could really think about that one. Probably. Well, you have to be careful who you orange pill and what they do with that. So it's how to orange pill. That peer-to-peer pill, yeah. I wouldn't give it to a politician. I don't think that they have any business doing it, but I would probably give it to my oldest brother, honestly. My oldest brother is someone that we've had an interesting relationship our whole lives. He's always worked on tech stuff. He is a computer guy, and worked for like Cisco for years, all this kind of stuff. But I think Bitcoin is one area where he's always kind of stayed away, and I think that he could provide a lot of value. and I would probably want to give it to him.
Awesome,
My
I
middle
love those
brother
answers.
is, yeah, my middle brother is definitely a Bitcoiner. We've spent a lot of time talking and discussing over the years. My oldest brother, if he is a Bitcoiner, I don't know about it. So I would like to give it to him. I would say.
Well, one, I hope he takes the orange pill, or two, I hope his OPSEC is so good that not even his youngest brother would know that he's been stacking for a long time.
Exactly. Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right.
basis. And that's the thing, is that it's one of these plants that when you plant it, it never goes away. It's perennial. It always comes back. It's long-lived. It's drought-tolerant. Don't plant it in full sun, except like full sun in the morning is fine. Full sun all day or in the afternoon and late afternoon, not so bueno, especially the further down south you get. You know, like if you're in the northern hemisphere, you start getting into Texas and full sun, no, you're going to want morning sun there. But you can cut this thing down to like basically ground level, and it will just come back. And I've done it about, I think I've done it a maximum of 6 times, but that's just because I'm lazy. I've heard people getting up to 8 to 10 cuttings of this plant, and you use it to make compost tea, or you just throw it in your compost pile. Or what I ended up doing is I got so damn lazy, I would just cut it and put the leaves and mulch around whatever plants I wanted mulch, because it acts as a mulch, suppresses weeds, and as it breaks down, it feeds all the stuff in the soil with a high nitrogen diet. This for sale, and she's got this for sale, one full root cutting for $20, or you can get small root cuttings for $1. And the difference is the dollar root cuttings you can get, you can get them pretty cheap. So I would buy 20 of them, but you're going to have to wait a little while for them to come up, anywhere between 2 and 7 weeks. I've literally seen one of these comfrey things come up, and it took, I don't know, it took like a full 10 weeks. I thought it was one of these things that it was just dead. So actually, I'm going to put in comfrey. Hold on, comfrey. I'm going to put in some images of the comfrey plant up here in the zap.stream. I've seen it come up, and it takes like 10 weeks. But if you get the full root cutting, the one root cutting that he's selling for $20, that thing will come up in like a week to a week and a half, because it's just got a lot more oomph to it, all right? So get a hold of shishi21m at protonmail.com if you want to get a hold of him by email. He's a little bit slower when it comes out, when you do it that way, or you can get a hold of him over on Noster. I've got his NPub in the show notes, and now that my show notes work, thanks to podhome.fm, everything will be copacetic. Buyer pays shipping, and he ships pretty much, I think, anywhere in the United States. He has 2 kinds, one called Balking 4, and the other one is called Balking 14. If you don't understand what it is that I'm talking about there, then you need to go listen to episode 726 of Bitcoin And. I do an entire half of the show. It's just all about comfrey and why you want this plant in your garden. All right, let's get on to the news. First up, Bitcoin Magazine, Nick Hoffman writing, President Joe Biden will veto legislation allowing financial firms to custody Bitcoin, according to a White House announcement. The executive office of U.S. President Joe Biden has announced its stance on proposed legislation, HJ Resolution 109, that would allow highly regulated financial firms to act as custodians for Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. The administration strongly opposes passage of Resolution 109, which would disrupt the Securities and Exchange Commission's work to protect investors in crypto asset markets and to safeguard the broader financial system. The executive office of the president stated, quote, if the president were presented with HJ Resolution 109, he would veto it. Yeah, so what is 109? Well, it would overturn the Securities and Exchange Commission Staff Accounting Bulletin number 121, which imposes restrictions on financial institutions regarding the custody of digital assets under the Congressional Review Act. By overturning SAB 121, this bipartisan resolution would remove roadblocks that prevent highly regulated financial institutions and firms from acting as custodians for Bitcoin and digital assets. United States Congressman Patrick McHenry, chairman of the House Financial Services Committee, expressed support for overturning the SEC's SAB 121, stating, quote, Staff Accounting Bulletin, or SAB 121, is one of the most glaring examples of regulatory overreach that has defined Gary Gensler's tenure at the SEC. Through SAB 121, the Commission is trying to dictate how financial institutions and firms safeguard Americans' digital assets under the guise of so-called staff guidance. Quote, SAB 121 requires financial institutions and firms that are safeguarding their customers' digital assets to hold those assets on their balance sheet, McHenry continued. And quote, that means banks would be required to take on significant capital, liquidity, and other costs under the existing prudential regulatory framework. This essentially makes it cost prohibitive for financial institutions to custody their customers' digital assets. This is a massive deviation from how highly regulated banks are traditionally required to treat the assets they hold on behalf of their customers, end quote. United States Congressman French Hill also spoke out in support of HJ Resolution 109, saying that, quote, holding reserves against the assets held in custody is not standard financial services practice. The Biden administration's SAB 121 is misguided and should be nullified. Discouraged that President Biden issued a statement of administration policy saying he would veto HJ Resolution 109, the joint resolution to nullify the SEC Staff Accounting Bulletin 121, said Cody Carbone, Chief Policy Officer at the Chamber of Digital Commerce, an American advocacy group that promotes the Bitcoin industry in Washington, D.C., quote, SAB 121 effectively prohibits trusted custodians from being able to manage digital assets. Earlier this year, Congressman Mike Flood and Wiley Nickel co-authored a bipartisan op-ed on the SEC's flawed SAB 121 guidance, stating that, quote, when it comes to digital asset custody, it's clear our most regulated institutions need to be at the table expressing concern about the lack of custodian options for spot Bitcoin ETFs, which could lead to concentration risks. So the Biden administration wants to nullify the ability, basically is going to nullify a resolution that in turn nullifies a Biden administration guidance that says, no, you can't do this. You're not going to be able, we're going to put you in a situation where it's going to be a regulatory nightmare and financially kind of expensive for you to do what you've always done with everything else but Bitcoin. So why bring it to you? I mean, it's like we've got a giant red candle on the way down as of early, a couple of hours ago. So somebody's wiping out all the logs. But I don't bring this to you as bad news. This is just a statement of fact. It is further evidence that the United States, from the presidential administration all the way down through the regulatory ranks, are indeed lining up to fight us. They're already fighting us. We're knee deep into it. But at this point, they've roped in the President of the United States to basically say, we're going to make it so onerous for you to do this thing that you do already with everything else that is not so onerous. It's totally fine for you to do this custody type thing with like every other asset that you hold for your customers, but not this one. Not this one. So again, and this smells exactly like Gary Gensler. Well, you can do everything that you've already done, but when it comes to this one thing, this Bitcoin thing, no, we're going to make it almost impossible for you to actually do. It'll be legal for you to do it, but it will be so expensive and so confusing, and we're going to set so many traps for you that you're not going to want to actually do it. So by making it difficult, they don't have to actually pass a law, because that law would indeed be unconstitutional in either event. This is where we're at. Now we've got the president basically stating that he will veto a thing that will make it status quo for this asset that is Bitcoin to be treated in the exact same way that all other assets that are held in custody by all these financial and regulated financial institutions is going to be treated differently. at the level of the President of the United States. That's where we're at Friday, May the 10th, 2024. But it gets a little bit worse. Crypto firms brace for intensified SEC and CFTC actions after regulator warning Prussian Jaw writing for Cointelegraph. The inflow of new investors into the industry, the crypto industry, has been a boon for adoption, but also comes at a cost. Now more than ever, the crypto industry is under the watchful eye of regulators concerned about, God forbid, market manipulation, like what they've been doing for decades anyway, investor protection, and the potential for crypto to facilitate illicit activities. Of course, the United States Commodity Futures Trading Commission, the CFTC, has warned that more enforcement actions will be taken against the crypto ecosystem in the coming 6 months to 2 years. On May the 6th, during the 27th Annual Milken Institute Global Conference. Milken. Why does that name sound familiar? Is that the junk bond trader? The guy that went to prison? That Milken? Is it that Milken? I don't know. It doesn't matter. CFTC Chair Rostin Benham said that the rise in the price of cryptocurrency and the inflow of new, inexperienced retail investors, there will be another cycle filled with crypto-centered scams and frauds. Quote, we're going to probably see in the next 6 to 18 months or 6 to 24 months another cycle of enforcement actions because of this cycle of asset appreciation and interest by retail investors. With no legal framework presently in place to regulate crypto service providers, the CFTC chair expects watchdogs to crack down on these firms. Since 2023, the SEC and the CFTC have cracked down heavily on firms. According to research by the litigation consulting firm Cornerstone Research, SEC enforcement actions reached a 10-year high in 2023, with digital assets taking a top priority for the Commission's attention. The SEC tripled the number of administrative proceedings in 2022 and initiated 46 enforcement actions in 2023. The regulator imposed $281 million in fines for settlements. 1/3 of all CFTC crypto enforcement actions in 2023 were against crypto firms. The CFTC took 47 enforcement actions representing over 1/3. It represented over 1/3 of the total enforcement actions brought by the Commission since the year 2015. U.S. regulators have multiple cases pending against U.S. crypto firms such as Kraken, Binance, and Coinbase. Regulators continued their enforcement efforts in 2024 when, in April, the U.S. Justice Department arrested the founders of a privacy-focused Samurai wallet on money laundering charges. In May, the SEC issued a Wells notice against Robinhood. So that's where we're at. They're going to do more. That's all this is saying, is that if you thought that it was over, it is not. And what is the key word here? It's investor protection. Okay. So who are these investors? The investors that they're worried about are quote-unquote inexperienced retail investors. The children, the little babies out there, the little babies that they have to have their hand held. They have to be walked across the street. They have to be spoon-fed, otherwise they'll starve to death. They have to be treated like infants because, God forbid, nobody but Gary Gensler and his crew of miscreants knows what's best for, they're the only ones that knows what's best for you. You don't. You're being treated like a child. You're being treated like you're ignorant. You're being treated like you have no capacity to learn, i.e. stupid. You're being treated as if you were stupid. Nobody has the capacity to learn any of this, apparently. And without Gary Gensler, we would all be in the poorhouse. I wholeheartedly disagree with that sentiment. But it just keeps on going. We've got this one, Matt DeSalvo from Decrypt. Bitcoin wallet maker Exodus is deeply disappointed because the SEC has blocked their IPO and NYSE listing. Yeah, was it going to happen? I didn't think it was. Bitcoin wallet software company Exodus Movement has said that it was surprised, confused, and deeply disappointed after the SEC moved to delay the company's planned listing on a United States stock exchange. Yesterday, the SEC postponed the crypto company's listing on the NYSE American and New York Stock Exchange's sibling market, according to Exodus. Today, the SEC made a surprise, last-minute decision that delays Exodus from listing on the NYSE American. Excuse me. While we are deeply disappointed, we will continue to empower customers all over the world to control their own wealth using our best-in-class self-custody crypto wallet. In an official statement, Exodus CEO J.P. Richardson said, "While we're surprised and confused by this last-minute decision, we remain hopeful that the SEC will follow through on its commitment to treat us as the law intends," whatever the hell that means. Exodus offers self-custodial wallet software for a number of cryptocurrencies, and they declined to comment further. Of course they did. I'm not a huge fan of Exodus. I've heard things. I've heard things, right? I'm putting up a picture. Ooh, I'm not going to show you Rainbow Grove. I was trying to put up a picture of Comfrey in a full screen. Let me see if I can do it, because this is a beautiful plant, especially when it's in flower, and I think you guys need to see this. Just open that up in a new tab. There we go. We'll put that up as a wallpaper. Yeah, I'm not a fan of Exodus. It's a shitcoin wallet, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't be understanding what the hell's going on here. This is a full-scale onslaught. Every door is being shut. Every window is being closed. Does that mean it's going to work? No, it's not going to work. But what it will do is it will test my resolve. It will test your resolve. It's going to test everybody's resolve. And if everybody thought that this was all going to be cleaned up in just a matter of weeks, you're wrong. This is just going to be an ongoing thing. And it won't be until the majority of the baby, quote-unquote, inexperienced retail investors get their fill of being fed, baby food, and they just don't want any anymore, and they basically stand up and say, dude, I can do this shit myself. It won't be until those moments, and those, could be years away, but it could happen faster. It depends on at what point the human species just cries out and says, I've had enough. But for now, this is just going to continue and continue and continue. Now, let's see, where are we at? Hold on for a second. I want to make sure of where we're at here. Yeah, let's do this one. Crypto markets under pressure as $2 billion worth of altcoin tokens unlocks and $11 billion worth of Bitcoin distributions loom. Now, this was actually written on May the 8th, so it's a little older, but it's out of CoinDesk, written by Christian Sandor. Let's get a grip on what the realities are. I don't like being the person that gets accused of feeding you guys hopium. But I don't want to depress the living shit out of you, but these are facts. And if facts depress you, Bitcoin probably isn't for you. It takes a strong stomach, a resolute heart to be able to survive any of this shit for any length of time at all. Okay, so cryptocurrencies are stuck in this corrective phase. But a wave of supply events worth billions of dollars could further delay any meaningful recovery. Quote, a rapid succession of nearly $2 billion, that's with a B, $2 billion worth of token unlocks during the next 10 weeks could lower the market for altcoins. Well, that's good. I hate altcoins. But large token unlocks in crypto are usually bearish events, increasing supplies by distributing assets that were previously locked up in vesting contracts to team members, organizations, early investors, including, venture capital firms. So they give a list of all the shit coins that are going to be unlocked. I'm not going to read them to you because they don't matter. But venture capital investors might be pressured to lock in recent gains, which could cap any upside performance of tokens. We're still in the shitcoin side of this, with positive momentum, especially those where unlocks become available. But here's the other side of that story. Over $11 billion worth of Bitcoin itself is going to be distributed to creditors of crypto exchange Gemini's Earn program and the long-defunct crypto marketplace Mt. Gox. K33 research analyst Velt Lund warned in a Tuesday report. The next months are rigged to see waves of good old crypto FUD, said Lund, referring to the popular crypto acronym for fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Amid upcoming supply events, one market observer suggested that the FTX repayments might offer some relief pending bankruptcy court approval. Some $14 to $16 billion of funds in U.S. dollars could be paid out to creditors, and a good chunk of that may flow back to the crypto market, said Arthur Chong, founder and chief investment officer of D Finance Capital. Quote, expect at least $3 to $5 billion of crypto native liquidity to be injected back into the market, he said on a Twitter post last Wednesday. So that sort of kind of gives you a feel for what's going on. It should, right? And this is never going to stop. Again, the regulatory environment's never going to stop. There's always going to be somebody with a bag full of Bitcoin ready to just unleash it on the market at a in a day's notice. We've still got 45,000 or so Bitcoin being held by the Treasury Department with the United States Department or the United States Marshal Service, right? They sent it over to Coinbase, but I haven't actually seen any reports whatsoever that they've actually executed any trades with it, like sold it, i.e. on the open market. So there's that. We've got Mt. Gox coming up. Gemini Earns coming up. There's always going to be some bag holder that for whatever reason hates Bitcoin. They hold a bag of it and they think that it's like this ultimate weapon that they're going to destroy everybody's wealth all at once with this one bag of crypto. And while they get a sense of satisfaction over the next few days, weeks, possibly even months, the market recovers. But this is where we're at. All the doors are being closed. All the windows are being slammed shut. Everybody hates us, including the President of the United States. Arguably, still the most powerful person on the face of the planet, whether economically or militarily, although they clearly work both hand in hand. And now we've got private bag holders. notes. If you want to follow Key Chat, just open
Hello.
that note up because it's a full link. It'll open up a
Do you
monster
speak
file
English?
for you, and then you can go to Key Chat and get their input directly from their profile.
Hey yo.
But this note says, and
Hello?
I'm going to throw this one
What's up?
into the
How are you?
into the Zap.
Do you speak English?
See, because it comes with a
Yes.
It says, in practice,
Do you have 2C4 for me?
we don't
For
need
change?
to include the sender's information. We
Oh,
only need to write
sorry,
the
my
recipient's address.
headphones disconnected.
There's
What was
no
that?
need to write the recipient's name.
Give me a sec.
The recipient's
Alright. Do you have 2C4 or one for me for change?
The sender's information is equivalent to being able to write any
I need a 2C4, a 1C4 and 2 satchels.
which will,
Wait, you need 2 C4s?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I don't have C4.
You are new here, right?
Nah, I've played. Oh, hey, who's that? Oh,
Yeah, it's
hello.
my friend. You live in
Oh,
United
nice.
States?
What?
You live in United States?
No, I don't live in the United States. What about you? Where do you live? In real life?
Miami, United States.
Ah, nice. So, like, Miami, is it like pretty... Is it pretty expensive in Miami right now?
Yeah.
I did just see like a lot of videos of people saying the cost of living in Miami is quite high.
Miami is good. I love Miami.
What do you like do in Miami? What's there? Is it like lots of shopping and stuff, right? Beaches.
I love Miami for Latin people.
Ah, nice. Oh yeah, good food as well.
I'm Cuban. Yeah, I'm Cuban.
Ah.
Cuban.
Oh yeah, you guys are pretty notorious on the island. I've heard that you've taken over the island and, you know, claiming your territory and stuff. Earning some sats. I feel
alright.
safe. I feel safe interacting with you in a safe spot because I feel like as soon as I walk out of here, you will shoot me in the face.
Alright, see you, my friend.
Goodbye. Have a nice one.
Good night.
Hey, Genesis. What's up? Okay, bye.
talk about not having any faith at all in Blue Sky. The guy that basically championed this entire thing got his fill. He stepped down from the board, and I think yesterday, it was either yesterday or early this morning or something like that, he deleted his profile from Blue Sky. Now, that's pretty terrible when you think about it. Not on Jack's part, but the fact that it's turned into just a clusterfuck. So that brings us back to the question, why would you want to engage in any way with Blue Sky when we have Nostr? This goes back to what I was saying with KeyChat. Remember what I said. KeyChat uses three systems. It uses eCache, it uses Nostr, and it uses Signal. Now we've got this bridge, this Mamoster.ping. If you just add the relay and don't follow the bridging from Blue Sky, you will be posting your profile and all your notes over to the Fediverse. If you want them also to post to Blue Sky and the Fediverse / Mastodon, etc., then you need to follow @BridgingFed for Blue Sky. This is the same thing as the KeyChat, and I don't mean it affects the same thing. I mean, at the back end, it's fungus. What I've always thought, and I still cannot get a clear answer, but like any kind of well, I was going to say ectomycorrhizal. Let's just say mycorrhizal fungi. It doesn't matter if it's ecto or endo. Let's just say mycorrhizal fungi. So you've heard me talk about it. If one spore that is genetic, carries the genetics from the parent, and that one spore gets into a situation where it's doing well, it sprouts in the soil, it hooks up with a couple of trees, gets some nutrients, and then boom, it's off to the races and grows. It sends out its spores, and if those spores generate and they're kind of in the same vicinity and they have mycelium, they're slightly genetically different, but they're genetically similar enough that those two mycelial networks can fuse. And I don't mean wrap around each other to make structures. I mean connect. And the liquid that's flowing through the cells of one mycelium is actually now able to cell or flow into the mycelium of the daughter or son or sibling or whatever you want to call it, the offspring, right? What I've always wondered is if two completely different species of mycelium in the soil can connect, like oyster mushroom and matsusaki. If their mycelial networks are able to fuse together and they can share intercellular fluid or internetwork fluids, the bacteria that's flowing down those networks, the genetic structure, because these mycelial mats, they send whole nuclei of themselves from cell to cell to cell to cell. They actually, whole nuclei move through the network. So the question I always had was, can two completely different fungal species connect? I think they can, but I haven't found any direct, scientific papers written about it. But let's say that I'm right. If you're able to connect two completely different yet fully formed networks together and share information, holy shit. Talk about you're talking about network effects that are not only exponential, but exponential plus geometric in growth. Massive growth. This is what we're doing. There's an eCache ecosystem, and that's genetically different than the Nostr ecosystem. But it looks like it's just similar enough that those two things can connect and start sharing data. Boom, exponential / geometric growth. And then you got Signal, been a huge ecosystem for a very long time. All of a sudden, we can cannibalize that and turn it to our own purposes. The same thing with the Fediverse, the same thing with Blue Sky. The only people that are going to be completely insulated from any of these effects are going to be the people that are still over on Twitter, because there's no access point in nor out of Twitter, especially since the API got closed off. They are completely insulated against this kind of, some people will call it an attack. I don't think of it as an attack. I think of it as a natural progress of organic systems. Even though that they're based on digital infrastructure, these are organic systems. They do everything just like organic networks, and they're starting to fuse together. And we have no idea at all what the true effects, what the true import, what the true power of that is going to be, but I suspect that it's going to be powerful in ways that we can't even imagine. Will there be negative effects? Of course there will be negative effects. There always are negative effects with change. But I'm looking at this going, holy shit. The internet age, the age of information, has never seen anything like this. Nobody knows what's coming. I know something's coming, I just don't know what it is, but I can see the hallmarks. These hallmarks of genetically different species of networks coming together and fusing in a way that they can import and export large amounts of data to each other and functionally act upon that information to do certain things that are of utility to the human species. Nobody's ever seen this before. Because all of these protocols have basically been kept away from each other. We've been addicted to firewalls because we're going to get hurt, right? Not anymore. Now, that means that some pain will be imported because we're dropping firewalls. But the amount of shit we're going to build is going to be on fucking fire. Now, let's get to zap.store. Zap.store, that is zap.store, is a permissionless app store, an app for phone stuff. Zap.store. It uses Nostr to establish identity, linking release artifacts to social profiles validated from the Web of Trust. And this enables secure installs, a new app discoverability layer, and developer monetization via Zaps. Right now, 0.1.0 is available. It's for Android only. So what are we talking about? We're talking about the first, as far as I know, the first private app store for Android that is based on the Nostr network and Nostr identities. Again, we're seeing these networks of different types that we never thought would fuse together. Not only are they fusing together, they're fusing together in mass. It goes on and on and on. Now, Cold Card Mark IV version 5.3.0 and Q version 1.2.0 shared code bases has been released. What's new? Add Nunchuck and Zeus options to export wallet, view identity, shows temporary seed active at the top. You can specify start index for address explorer, export, and browsing. You can allow unlimited index for BIP, 85 derivations. Passphrase menu is no longer offered if BIP 39 passphrase is already in use. Remove the ability to add passphrases to master seed if active temporary seed, and a whole bunch of other stuff. So there's a brick me option for if wrong pin caused yikes, and I don't know exactly what that means, but it looks to me like a whole bunch of stuff has been added to the firmware of the Mark IV and Q, so I'm looking forward to that. Bitcoin Keeper version 1.2.6, Canary wallets to detect unauthorized key usage. Bitcoin Keeper is an open source mobile multi-sig Bitcoin wallet with inheritance features available on both iOS and Android. You can back up vaults to your personal cloud. You can use Canary wallets to detect unauthorized key usage. They have concierge support out in their beta, UX and UI enhancements, bug fixes and performance improvements. So if you're interested in looking at a multi-sig wallet for both iOS and Android, go check out Bitcoin Keeper. I have not used it myself, so I don't know. If you get a chance to check it out and you've got something to say about it, good or bad, please let me know. and I will let people know here on the show. Now, Blockstream Green Desktop version 2.0.5 adds single sig watch-only wallets and more. The Blockstream Green app version 2.0.5 has just dropped. The update adds the ability to add or import single sig watch-only wallets, new watch-only section in settings, an option to expose XPubs and output descriptors of single sig accounts, handling of BIP21 payments on Linux, and more. So if you are a user of Blockstream Green, you might want to consider updating to the version 2.0.5. Or I think, honestly, I always wait like a few weeks before I install anything. Like, for instance, I've got my server 1 from Start 9 is up and running with Bitcoin Core, Lightning Node, or Lightning Core. All kinds of stuff is on it. And I've already noticed that I need to upgrade to Bitcoin Core 27.0.0. It's already been out for 3 weeks. I'm going to let it roll. And that's what I love about Bitcoin, is that I can do that. I don't have to update to the latest and greatest version. And in fact, I never do. When it comes to Bitcoin Core, I let that son of a bitch burn in for like a good 6 weeks before I even consider upgrading to the newer version. And I've never gotten into trouble because of that. I've never had any issues of not upgrading immediately, and I've heard of people that have had issues when they have upgraded immediately instead of waiting to make sure that all the bugs have been shaken out of that shit. Anyway, that's going to do it for the morning roundup. Dad says, jokes. The genie, what's your first wish? Steve says, I wish I was rich. Genie says, what's your second wish, Rich? Get it? Be careful of what you wish for. That's all. Every single time that anybody tells a genie joke, or there's a genie story, or there's some idiot rubbing some kind of lamp and getting 3 wishes, the theory of what that is supposed to represent is always the same. It is be careful of what you wish for. And there's 2 things that we wished for, or I'll say I have wished for 2 things for a long time. One is for Bitcoin to become mainstream. Be careful of that. What are we seeing? We're seeing serious regulatory pushback, and now they've roped in Diaper Dude from the highest office in the world, the President of the United States. Okay. So clearly that's not the good part. But all of this stuff, like if you want Bitcoin to go mainstream, if you want more and more people to use it, if you want true, honest-to-God circular economies, then expect the pain. It's going to happen. There is no growth without pain. Remember when you were a kid and your legs hurt like they were on fire? It's because you were growing. There is no growth without pain. It never happens. All right? So, and the second thing is, when networks get larger, aka adding more nodes, right? They grow exponentially. You know, a node of 1 is not a network at all. It's a network of 1, which is not a network. I think that a network starts at the number 2. There has to be at least 2 nodes involved for anything approaching a network to actually look like a network. When you add 3, you get like 9 potential connections. If you've got 4 nodes, then it's, you see how this goes. This goes exponential. But think about it when you've got a solid network of hundreds of nodes, a huge network, a massive amount of potential interlinking or interlink communication features within that one network. And then you've got another network that is a different network, but it's just similar enough that it can connect to the other network. And then you've got a huge, massive network that was a geometric growth on top of an exponential growth, which makes the exponential growth and geometric growth functions both pale in comparison when taken separate. But when you put those on top of each other, an exponential growth and then you grow exponential growths by geometric growth, it is almost unfathomable what can be done. Be prepared to see a completely different internet. Be prepared to see a completely different way that people are interacting not only with each other, but with themselves. Watch introspection, and people start taking time for themselves multiply. Watch people stop getting interested in stupid bullshit and become more interested in the things that actually do matter. And I really do think that these interlinked networks are going to have a major say in not only how that happens, but why it happens in the first place. There's a book called The Wealth of Networks. I have not read it, but I'm thinking very seriously, maybe if I had enough interest with a couple of people out on Nostr, that maybe we could read it together and have like a small book club on the wealth of networks. I'm sure it's written after Adam Smith's A Wealth of Nations, so it's probably by, the author is probably somebody that we can be at least halfway copacetic with. But again, since I haven't read it, I'm talking out of my ass. But a whole book has been written about a wealth of networks. When you have multiple networks and they start connecting with each other, watch out, because real shit's going to change real fast, and I will see you on the other side. This has been Bitcoin and I'm your host, David Bennett. I hope you enjoyed today's episode and hope to see you again real soon. Have a great day.
Simply Bitcoin, your number one source for the peaceful Bitcoin revolution, code breaking news, culture, medic warfare. We'll be your guide through the separation of money and state. Guys, welcome to the Simply Bitcoin live stream, the most watched daily Bitcoin only live show on YouTube, Rumble, and X. Sit back, relax, enjoy the ride. We have a lot to talk about today. Specifically, this is a subject that when we cover, you guys absolutely love it. So we're going to cover it again. How much Bitcoin do you need to retire by the year 2030? So we have all these different resources and little, tools that you guys can apply. You guys could do yourself at home and apply it and, see how it works for your financial situation. But, TLDR is just keep stacking those sats and, it's going up forever, Laura. So really excited about today's episode. This is apparently a topic that you guys like to talk about, that you guys like that when we cover it. And also we're going to introduce a little bit of a different variable, because this is actually something that popped up on my radar recently. And what I got to say about any model, I forget what the famous saying is, that like every model ends up being wrong, but some could be useful, something along those lines, is the Bitcoin power law. That seems to be the one that is making the rounds lately. But it's really interesting. Like, it's really interesting in terms of, like, it seems like it's been accurate so far. But I mean, again, every model is accurate until, the next cycle happens, and then it's not accurate. So I would take it with a grain of salt, but it is very interesting. And the power law aspect of it is interesting as well, because apparently a power law isn't just applied to Bitcoin. It's applied to multiple different things, and apparently it applies. Like, you can see it in nature. You can see it on a multitude of different things, and you can apply the power law to it, and it maps out what's going to happen. So in a way, it's weird, because why would you be able to apply that to a financial asset? Well, I mean, Bitcoin's different. And I think it's different in the sense that, there's 21 million. It's super mathematical. And it's tied to, it's anchored to energy. So could it be? Could it be? I don't know. No one knows. But I think it's fun to talk about. It's fun to bring up. We also have the creator or basically the person that discovered the power law as it applies to Bitcoin, Giovanni Santostasi. We have him actually coming on Simply Bitcoin IRL to further explore the topic. So really excited to start talking about Bitcoin's power law. We've never done so on Simply Bitcoin. Also, in the numbers section, we have three different topics from three notable different Bitcoiners that are really interesting topics. And again, it's just little historic milestones and little historical examples of the primary theme of this show, which is the separation of money and state. So I'm really excited. It's going to be a great show. And of course, we have a very special guest today. We have Vendetta from Coinway. Vendetta always drops the hot fire when he comes on Simply Bitcoin. So we're really, really excited for him to be on the show today. How you doing, Vendetta?
Fantastic, bro. How you doing?
Good, man. It's another day making Bitcoin content. Can't complain. Drinking my electrolytes. I was getting these crazy headaches, and then when it was my dad or someone who told me, he's like, and I was like taking Advil. I was like, no, dude, you just got to drink your electrolytes. And now, like, if you just drink electrolytes, you don't get headaches. It's like a total life hack. So if anyone has headaches, just drink electrolytes.
Yeah, you got to stay hydrated. You know, you talk all day trying to convince people about the importance of self-custody. Your mouth goes dry 100 times.
Right? Exactly. All right. And I also want to bring up my legendary co-host, who is always optimistic, the one, the only, the Optimist Fields. How you doing, Opti?
Well, to be honest, Nico, I'm still reeling from OptiGate 2024, hashtag free Opti. No, I'm just trolling. It's beautiful, man. I couldn't complain. Life's great. You know, blocks are coming in. We're on the Bitcoin standard. We get to create in paradise. It's absolutely beautiful being a Bitcoiner. But guys, hey, you know, show Nico some love. Take it easy on him in the chat. You know,
is it going ham?
They're trolling a little bit. But I did kind of reflect yesterday a little, Nico. You know, the Overlord, I got the call from the Overlords yesterday and had to reflect on my rhetoric. No, actually, I was reading a book, and it really made me think, you know, like, what is our goal here at Simply Bitcoin? And our goal is to get as many people to hold Bitcoin as possible. And with that comes, how do we spread the Bitcoin message more effectively? And part of that is, like, I think effectiveness in how we talk about Bitcoin can take many forms. Like, you can effectively troll people, you can effectively speak to the choir, or you try to do what we do here and be as the most effective we can to break out of the Bitcoin echo chamber. And so that's what we're trying to do. And hey, you know, I sometimes get a little wild and crazy, but that's why I had to wear my shirt today. You know, I had to wear my epic shirt that I love completely, because I think what we're doing here and what most people don't understand is that Bitcoin supersedes all modern politics and supersedes everything that we know to be true right now. And it really, I think, gets to the core of, like, how do we achieve a higher culture, a higher society? And that all starts with how we say all the time, fix the money, fix the world. And so we are always trying to better our rhetoric, tweak our message so that more people understand what Bitcoin is. So yeah, guys, be easy on Nico. We're still perfecting our messaging so that more people understand why we Bitcoin. I mean, me and V for Vendetta were talking before the show. It's like, it's amazing how people still don't understand Bitcoin. Like, it's so obvious to us, but there's still a lot of mental hurdles. There's still a lot of education out there that we need to not only improve on, but just get the message out there. So guys, we still got a long way to go, but hey, Bitcoin's working. It's beautiful. I love being a Bitcoiner. I love stacking sats. I love talking about Bitcoin and you know, thinking towards the future instead of looking backwards and being nihilistic and sad and in fear. It's like, man, there's so much hope if you understand what is actually going on in the world. And that's what we try to do. Anyways, rant over, Nico.
Wow, bro, Optimist Fields.
Hey, you can tell I read a book for once.
No, and just to kind of address a lot of the comments, guys, I think a lot of you, if you guys, there's a method to the madness. We want to be as inclusive as possible because we want to get as many people on our side of the football before the hammer falls. Like, that's the reality. So there's a certain way to do that, and when you start saying certain things in a certain way, what it does is that it excludes people. And we want to be inclusive as possible on this show because we believe that you don't change Bitcoin, Bitcoin changes you. So instead of attacking people head on in terms of their politics, all you got to do is you got them to, if you get them to take the orange pill, Bitcoin does many things. So that's kind of been like the philosophy at Simply. But at the same time, I hear you guys in the chat, and yeah.
Guys,
free Opti 2024.
Hashtag free Opti. Blink twice if I'm being held hostage right now. The overlords are calling my phone as we speak. No, I'm trolling, guys. I'm trolling. All right.
All right, guys.
It's Friday. I got a meme review too. Let's go.
All right, let's start the show. We have a lot to talk about today. Let's check it out. Here we go. But before we do that, I do want to give an extremely special shout out to the Bitcoin company that powers the show. Our lead sponsor, of course, I'm talking about Bitcoin Well. Bitcoin Well is the place to build your automatic self-custody Bitcoin stack. It is a self-custody by default platform, future-proof your money. What does that mean? What does self-custody by default mean? That means that you can't buy Bitcoin on Bitcoin Well unless you're going to take self-custody. As soon as the funds clear, it literally sends the Bitcoin from Bitcoin Well straight to your Bitcoin address. You don't have an option to just leave it on the exchange, right? Which perfectly aligns with the Simply Bitcoin ethos of the separation of money and state, because after all, self-custody is the revolution. So guys, go to bitcoinwell.com today. You can use bitcoinwell.com/simply if you prefer, and you can get started. All you got to do is you put in your email, you do the verification process. There's a transparent 1% fee. It's a Bitcoin-only platform, and like we said, it's completely non-custodial. I believe it's the first Bitcoin on-ramp in the U.S. to be non-custodial by default. So guys, support self-custody by default Bitcoin on-ramps. Visit bitcoinwell.com/simply today. All right, everybody, let's get to the numbers.
The Bitcoin numbers.
Is your Bitcoin in cold storage really secure? Is your seed phrase really secure? Stamp Seed's do-it-yourself kit has everything you need to hammer your seed words into commercial-grade titanium plates instead of just writing them on paper. Don't store your generational wealth on paper. Paper is prone to water damage, fire damage. You want to put your generational wealth on one of the strongest metals on planet Earth, titanium. Your words are actually stamped into this metal plate with this hammer and these letter stamps. And once your words are in, they aren't going anywhere. No risk of the plate breaking apart and pieces falling everywhere. Titanium stamped seeds will survive nearly triple the heat produced by a house fire. They're also crush-proof, waterproof, non-corrosive, and time-proof. All things that paper is not, allowing you to hodl your Bitcoin with peace of mind for the long haul. Stamp your seed on Stamp Seed. Guys, do you want to put yourself in a situation where your grandchildren absolutely hate you? No, you don't want to do that because you want to pass them your generational wealth, right? And the way that you do that is by properly securing your Bitcoin seed words, right? And one of the best ways to do that is to stamp them into freaking titanium, one of the strongest metals on planet Earth. So what you could do is you could scan the QR code. It'll take you directly to the Stamp Seed website. You can use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off anything on the site. Guys, I'm joking a little bit, with the grandchildren joke. Forgive my dad jokes. I just became a dad. But it's probably not a good idea to write down your seed words on paper, especially for the long term. So get yourself a Stamp Seed seed phrase storage kit. At the time of recording, the Bitcoin price is $60,810. Block height, 842,874. Sats per dollar, 1,644. Market cap, 1.2 trillion. Bitcoin priced in gold, 25.9 ounces. Bitcoin versus gold market cap, 7.4%. Percentage issued, 93.79%. Decline from all-time high, 17.6%. Forward monetary inflation, 0.85%. Realized monetary inflation, 1.68%. Completely taking fiat currencies to absolute school. And that inflation number is going to keep getting cut in half forever. Anyways, I have 3 different tweets covering 3 completely different things, but I think they're equally as important. So first tweet is coming from Patrick Webb. It says the IRS will now target individuals who threaten the U.S. government's ability to govern. A vague new criterion for criminal investigation. This includes protesters of foreign relations under the guise of national security, according to its updated operating manual. It goes on to say, according to the IRS, national security refers to the national defense of foreign relations of the U.S. and includes within the Treasury context U.S. economic vitality, global competitiveness, market sensitivity, and tracking terrorist assets / financial crimes. Meaning the IRS is expanding its scope to include a broad range of individuals, potentially including Americans protesting their government's foreign relations to day traders and its investigative efforts. Now, what's really interesting about this is at the very top, like, who defines what the Treasury defines? What is market sensitivity? What if they say that Bitcoin is a threat to the market sensitivity? We've heard this a million times in the Binance DOJ press conference. They literally mentioned the word terrorism and like at least 30 times, and that's literally like my face turned white when I heard it, and I was like, holy shit, they're gonna go after self-custody. Fast forward a couple months, here's where we are. So like the fact that they, that this is even a thing, that they can get the tax collectors, which they recently increased, to just go after certain political opponents is crazy. But at the same time, should not surprise you. Once again, predicted by the book, The Sovereign Individual. So that's topic number 1. Do you guys have any thoughts on this before I move on to the next tweet?
I mean, just super simply, like, rewriting laws to clamp down on capital is not only absolutely terrifying, but completely not surprised by this. We know what happens when empires start to crumble, the institutions try to fight back.
And then what's your take on this, Vendetta?
Yeah, completely agree, man. This is like a wounded animal stuck in a corner and not knowing what to do, and so it's trying to do anything possible just to win, when ultimately defeat is staring them in the face. That's basically what I see.
Did I just hear you say we were winning?
Yeah, of course we're winning. Why would we get this type of reaction if we weren't winning? if nothing what we were doing, amounted to much, none of this stuff, we'd never be reading any of this stuff. It's because Bitcoin is dominating. It's because self-custody is on the rise. It's because people are aware of what's really going on and understanding the truth that all these scare tactics, all these rabid actions are coming about. This is definitely expected, but this is the sign of a losing power. Whenever you have to resort to tyranny and corruption, you've already lost the game. You attract more power with innovation and incentives rather than these destructive techniques. I don't see this ending well in any way, shape, or form.
I completely agree.
Hey Nico, before we move on, I do want to just reiterate what V for Vendetta just said. It's like, because we are so effective and what we do actually has a meaningful impact on what things are doing, that's why they are attacking us.
100%.
Keep going.
100%. Guys, there's about 800 watching you, or 800 that'd be bad. There's about 800 of you guys watching between YouTube.
I mean, that's not a lie either.
Between YouTube, Rumble, and X. So if you guys are enjoying the show, it really helps with the algos if you guys smash the like button. So if you're watching us on Twitter, YouTube, Rumble, smash the like button. It helps push the orange signal. Second tweet is by Brad Mills. He goes on to say, a middle-class factory worker wants to wire $45,000 of his own hard-earned money to buy Bitcoin in Canada, and RBC is straight up blocking his exit. They do not want you taking your money out of the banking system. Get out while you can. Canadians need more Bitcoin, need Bitcoin more than ever. If anyone wants to read a story about this, it's a saga going on for 2.5 weeks now. He's been trying to buy Bitcoin since April 20th. The bank, quote-unquote, lost his money in the wire system for a week, trying to frustrate him out of buying BTC at every step. By the way, Opti and I recently just went through this. We as a company, we're trying to get paid from someone located in Canada. And guess what? It was an absolute effing nightmare. You know what was very easy to do? Receive Bitcoin. Also, Adam O'Brien, CEO and founder of Bitcoin Well, his wife just got debanked, right? So, and again, I'm sure it's because she is associated with her husband who has been debanked. And why has he been debanked? Maybe it's the fact that he's the CEO of a Bitcoin on-ramp, right? So what are your guys' takes on this?
Yeah, I mean, again, like I say it all the time, Canada is just absolutely shooting themselves in the kneecaps. And again, Canada is always a test bed for really bad ideas that will eventually get exported out into every other Western country. So I'm not surprised at all. But I mean, I think the biggest news, and I really like Adam O'Brien's tweet on and him getting debanked. He's like, my wife that's simply just a housewife is terrifying the bank so much because of her last name, and now she's debanked. It's absolutely ludicrous and insane.
100%. What's your take on this, Vendetta?
Well, again, it's confirming the Bitcoin truth. I mean, Bitcoin was created to put an end to theft, and by doing all these things, by restricting access to your own money, it's just confirming that it's shedding light on the truth that Bitcoin is encroaching on a thief's bread and butter, and they want to put an end to it as much as possible. And the more people get out of this system, the quicker they sink. So, what else do you want them to do? When you're encroaching on their territory, they're going to push back. But ultimately, it's a losing battle, because Bitcoin is the best money out there. It's the hardest money out there. The only issue with it is that most people still don't understand anything about it, let alone money in general. But that's coming. As more pain, comes about in the economy and people start affording less and less things, questions are going to be asked, and advice is going to be given, and ultimately all roads will lead to Bitcoin. Where else are you going to go?
Yeah, 100%. Eventually, all roads lead to Bitcoin. All right, last topic of the day, gentlemen, and kind of a follow-up to yesterday's episode. I'm going to make it more obvious today. I'm going to ask a rhetorical question, all right? So crypto really is a bipartisan issue, says Alex Thorne. 20% of likely voters in swing states say it's a, quote, major issue in the 2024 election, and these voters are split on party lean. 45% Republican, 42% Democrat, 13% independent. Now, Alex Thorne asked the question, it's national Dems who have chosen to make it partisan and potentially lose votes over it. Why? Now I'm going to ask the rhetorical question again, because you guys didn't get the hint yesterday. Why are Democrats in the federal government, not all of them, against Bitcoin? I don't know why. I'll let you guys with why you think that is. Anyways, Opti, what's your take on this, bro? Isn't it crazy? Because this is the case that we've been making for so long, right? Is that Bitcoin is all inclusive. It doesn't matter whether you're independent, Republican, or Democrat. Doesn't matter what your specific political ideology is. Bitcoin is for you. Bitcoin helps you. The progressive case, Bitcoin is the most equitable, equal money the world has ever seen. It banks everyone around the world, doesn't judge you based on where you happen to be born in. The more conservative right-wing talking points is Bitcoin protects your wealth from the insidious taxation of monetary debasement. It also helps you with unconfiscatable wealth, right? So it literally helps everyone. It doesn't matter where you're coming from. But isn't it interesting? Isn't it interesting that despite the fact that their voter base is super pro-Bitcoin, there are some politicians in Washington, D.C. that come from a certain political party that, don't support Bitcoin. I wonder why that is. Once again, that is a rhetorical question, because I guess you guys didn't pick that up yesterday. Anyways, Opti, what's your take on this, bro? And love your shirt.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I knew there's a reason to wear this shirt. Yeah, I really like that tweet by Alex Thorne. I think, you know, obviously I also learned through visuals, so I really enjoyed seeing some charts and stuff. But on that note, I did find another website yesterday, that I found very interesting, and it's standwithcrypto.org/politicians. And I was trolling with my friend yesterday, and you know, it's like, at what point do you go on there and check your local state representatives and start shaming them about their stances on Bitcoin? Because it's becoming very clear. So again, standwithcrypto.org/politicians. Go look them up, and I mean, it's very obvious. It's like I'm starting to not really like the Bitcoin is for enemies meme, even though it's a good meme. But it's like, you can tell how muddied the water is in regards to people thinking around Bitcoin, because like, it's very obvious if you exchange Bitcoin or the dollar there, like no one out here is like, oh yeah, like of course anyone can hold dollars. Like, yeah, there's no like gatekeep. Well, I mean, there is some gatekeepers to the dollars, but as an average person, you're like, yeah, like if a guy I don't like holds dollars, like it's like, it is what it is. But when it comes to like Bitcoin, you know, there's like this visceral knee-jerk reaction. It's like, no, he can't hold Bitcoin, and it's like, look, I'm just a guy here. It's a permissionless network. Anyone can hold Bitcoin if they see the value in Bitcoin. And that's the beauty of Bitcoin, is that there is no overlord telling you that you can't hold Bitcoin. But again, go check out standwithcrypto.org/politician. It's a pretty interesting website. But oh yeah, go on, Nico.
I'm gonna ask an open-ended question, because you guys didn't pick it up yesterday. Anyone who is for a government that has more control over its people, maybe Bitcoin isn't for them. Maybe it could be that. I don't know for sure. But anyways, I do want to give a shout out to the super chat from Victor Julian. Thank you for the $20. He says, I'm just trying to get rid of some fiat I got laying around the house. It's probably a good idea, because that fiat is literally a melting ice cube.
Yeah, give me all your fiat. I'll take it.
Did we get another one? John, appreciate the $20, man. Thank you. You young men will guide the future to a better world, says a boomer. Well, I appreciate that. Vendetta, what's your take? Well, Vendetta, what's your take on this? Because it's interesting, because if you ask the populace, they're all pro-Bitcoin. They're like, this is great. But it seems like there's a certain subsect of politicians, and it's, you know, it's on both sides of the aisle, one aisle more than the other, that is against their constituents. Let's put it let's put it bluntly. So what's your take on that?
Yeah, man. I mean, you based on my story, where I come from, when I've, you know, experienced the entire decimation of a country and had my entire life ripped apart, you know, essentially the rug pulled. When you go through something like this, you know, your views on life and politicians and governments, you know, takes a 180, you know, and doesn't go back. It exposes the incentives, exactly as you said. There are no good people, you know, in many governments. There are